Well, you've learned how to take that really serious stuff that you were talking about on the radio as a journalist, and found the humor in it. And
right. I
put it on
found the humor in it.
stage.
And part of the reason why I found the humor in it, and this is true with a lot of comedians, is that they're looking for a way to process it without becoming an alcoholic. They're looking for a way to deal with the harshness of life without like being too harsh towards themselves. Whether it be with drugs or alcohol or or any of that sort of stuff. So most comedians I know are actually pretty serious people. And most, if you talked probably to Dave Chappelle, and you talk to Chris Rock, or you talk to Louis C.K. or Bill Burr, I think that you would find that they're pretty serious people who think about a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
But what they do is they have a unique perspective and an honesty, at least from their perspective, and a take on the way they see the world. They're not saying they have a corner on the market on truth, but they're saying at least, they have the balls to say, at least this is my truth. This is what I experience, my truth in a kind of subjective sort of, semi/subjective, objective manner. So, so I can really appreciate that. And so like the comedy was to me like a natural flow from the journalism.
Yeah.
And the comedy, like for you guys and like for voice work, finding the comedy in situations is kind of finding the, to me, the reality in situations, right? And finding the comedy is about finding the contradiction,
right?
Finding the foibles, finding the weakness, but not making fun of the weakness, but embracing the weakness, or embracing the diversity or the being inclusive, right? And I find it to be the best way for me to express myself professionally.
Yeah.
I feel more authentic as a comedian expressing a truth than I ever did as a journalist expressing a truth.
You're seeing the humor in it.
Yeah, and I'm also seeing the truth. I feel like I'm almost more truthful and more authentic, exaggerating the truth, as opposed to reporting the truth through my own sort of either liberal or conservative or sort of mainstream pair of glasses.
Yeah.
Right. So but again, that's a subjective thing. I feel more truthful in this format. And what Chris Rock always says about stand-up, he says, or comedy in general, he says, and I believe this to be true myself, he says, comedy is truth plus pain, right? The truth combined with pain, and then you get to good comedy. So if he's talking about racism, he's not making stuff up. He doesn't need to make up stuff. He has to look and see what he sees as the truth, and where there's pain involved. Pain doesn't have to be physically painful. You're being shot at.
Yeah.
It could be you feel sad, you feel hurt emotionally, you feel left out emotionally, you feel incompetent emotionally. And most of us feel pain all the time. And what comedy does, and this is why comedy is so important, and humor in society, is that comedy is like a vent. Comedy, when you laugh, it releases tension. It releases endorphins. Comedy is like, I don't want to go into a porn direction here, but comedy is like an orgasm. Comedy is basically like the muscles are clenching and there's a release. And when you do a show and 200 people are sitting there watching and they're all laughing at the same time, there's so much energy, and it's really awesome. The only bad thing about that is when the show's over and you want to go back to your life. It's so hard to go back to your life because you're in this like, and then you go back to the hotel and there's nobody in your room with you but you, right? So you got to like stand in front of the mirror and go like, which.
But what I think is so cool about comedy, and what I'm trying to learn from you, and what I think other voice actors can learn from comedians and you, is that when you're a comedian, you have to know your audience. we were talking earlier about different shows that he does. In Germany, he goes to carnival shows where it's a different type of audience than an older community in Germany. So you have to really know your audience and know the right jokes to say to that audience. And in voice acting, you have to think about the person you're talking to rather than just talk into a mic without any emotion.
Right. So that's why, like, whenever I do a comedy show, or when I do, like, not really as much a comedy show, but like a corporate event, if I do a corporate event, like for BMW or something, I always ask how many people are going to be there. How clean should it be? You know, usually for corporate events, they want it to be clean. They don't want dirty material. They don't want you to swear. They don't want you to talk about body parts while swearing, all that stuff, you know, they don't want. And also, are these people who would necessarily go to comedy? How old is the audience? I would sometimes ask.
Yeah.
Well, actually, I would always ask. How much of the audience speaks German or speaks English? I do my comedy in German, but I've been to shows before. I've been to shows before where the people have said 90% of the audience doesn't speak German. And they told me that 5 minutes before the show. And I'm like, wait a minute, my whole show's in German. I'm doing it in German. Nobody's laughing. And the guy who booked me for good money is saying, he's not so funny. And I'm like, duh, you know, you told me beforehand that 90% of the audience that I have to entertain doesn't speak the language I'm speaking with them in. You know, Jay Leno said this one time. He was at the Playboy Club in Las Vegas or something doing a show, and it completely bombed. And then they told him afterwards there were 100, I think, Norwegian tourists who spoke no English. And he did a half hour and bombed and thought he was awful. And he wasn't. He was just the way he always is, which was really good. But they didn't understand the language. So you got to, like, figure out
who your audience,
like, the parameters. You got to, and you also got to test when you're doing it, how far can I go, right? Can I go Dave Chappelle with them? Or can I go Seinfeld with them, right? Because Seinfeld is much cleaner. There's no cursing. There's no sex. There's no nudity. There's no, you know, that sort of stuff. You know what I'm saying? I was going to keep going, but... You know, no exchange of body flow, you know, that sort of thing. But,
so how do you think when you are thinking about a show that you're doing for comedy,
right?
Do you ever do that when you're doing a voiceover gig? What do you ever think about who the audience is and how to prepare and how to get the right sound for that particular audience? Do you do that?
Well, the thing is, if you have a good director when you're doing a voiceover gig or something like that, they'll tell you, they'll give you specifics. If you don't get specifics from them, ask them for specifics. Do you want a younger sounding voice? Do you want a friendly sounding voice? Do you want a sexy sounding voice?
So it's okay to ask questions.
It's okay to ask questions. Do you want a fast, excited voice? Do you want more of a lower, you know, bass type of, you know, experienced voice? Oh, there it is, it's back again. And that sort of stuff. So if they don't give you the information, ask them for the information, right? That, I think, is a really important thing.
Yeah.
And also ask them the general question, what's this for?
Yeah.
Is this for online? Is this for a TV commercial? Is this for radio? Is this for an in-house, you know, training, you know, DVD or something like that, right? What's this for? I oftentimes ask, how fast do you want me to voice it? Do you want me to say, hey, welcome to the show today. What's going on? Blah, blah, blah. Oftentimes, the people hearing your video in English, I do my voice work in English, are not native speakers in English. So they want you to be slower in your pronunciation, or no, slower in your speed, and also clear in your pronunciation.
Yeah.
So they don't want you to say, hey, what's up? How you doing, BMW drivers? You know, I know BMW Ultimate Drive Machine. They don't want that. You know, they want you to be, welcome to BMW. You know, the car, the legend, BMW. They want, you have to basically get the information.
Because usually you're thinking of who you're talking to.
Yeah, and also, like with anything else, what's very good is to watch commercials on TV and to see what voices go good with what products. Like when you watch Wimbledon on ESPN, it's no surprise that you're seeing a lot of Rolex commercials, you're seeing a lot of Mercedes-Benz commercials, and that sort of stuff. If you're watching fishing on TV, right, you're not seeing many Rolex commercials, you know, because the guys fishing are afraid the Rolex is going to, you know, fall in the water and be eaten by the fish.
Of course,
right? Or the Mercedes is going to get stolen while they're
fishing.
You know, fishing. You can't put the shotgun in the back of the Mercedes. That's kind of stupid.
It's a lot, yeah.
You know, it's kind of odd. There's no gun rack in the SLK, you know, it's, or maybe in the States there is.
In the United States, that's an add-on service.
That's an add-on for each car, you know. Do you want that with the gun and the bullet, or something like that?